Good morning, Estella. And I think you're it. Estella, this morning, it was really nice to be with your family yesterday, Estella, and hope you're well. And yeah, the face on that thumbnail has a lot to be desired. It's an old looking face. So, this is the end of week 3 of our Lent series on loving God. And the Saturdays I thought I would simply devote to answering questions, and there are no questions this week that I could find anyway on YouTube. So I'm going to take just a few minutes to answer, believe it or not, answer a question that I was pondering yesterday, leading up to yesterday when I was thinking about boundaries, doing some prep work for that and pondering it. I got to thinking about, good morning, Angelica. I'm glad to have you joining us this morning. So, uh, in the prep leading up to talking about boundaries yesterday, I got to thinking about Jesus' comments in the Sermon on the Mount when Jesus said things like, go the second mile. Um, if somebody asks you to carry a burden 1 mile, go two. And the turn the other cheek. If somebody hits you on the left, give them the right. And those two sayings of Jesus from the Sermon on the Mount, as well as some others, strike me when I first started thinking about them. They were kind of, nibbling away at the back of my brain because they strike me as sounding as if Jesus does not have any boundaries. It's sounding as if Jesus is saying that we should submit ourselves to the control of other people and let ourselves be, good morning, Ann, and let ourselves be abused. And that's very unboundary like. And so that was, in the back of my brain, whenever I'm doing something like this. Good morning, Kathy. A bunch of you here on Saturday morning. Good for you. That was just back there in the back of my brain, kind of like, man, is this true about boundaries? Is what I'm saying accurate? Is it biblical, etc.? So I was pondering that even as I was talking about boundaries, and that kind of thing just doesn't let go. I have to figure it out, which is a good thing, I suppose. So I got to pondering what Jesus was saying when Jesus said, go the second mile. If somebody forces you to carry their burden 1 mile, go two. And if somebody hits you on the left, give them the right, that kind of thing, or vice versa. I don't remember which it is. But, the turn the other cheek and go the second mile, pondering those, to understand what Jesus was saying and why they are not on boundary like messages, you have to understand that Jesus was dealing with the people who were very oppressed, as you know, oppressed by Rome. A Roman soldier by law could force you to carry his burden for 1 mile, not two, but he could force you to carry his burden for 1 mile. And so in this world where people were living under oppression by a very powerful a government that was more powerful than them, what Jesus was counseling people to do, he was inviting his followers to engage in a certain kind of resistance to evil and to oppression. He was not counseling on boundarylessness. In fact, he was inviting people to a certain kind of boundary. And let me explain. When Jesus, for example, when Jesus stood before Pilate and Herod during his trial, there's a famous scene where the people in power, the Romans in power, said to Jesus, don't you know that we have the power of life and death over you, which was true in Rome. We could take your life if we want to. And do you remember how Jesus responded? He said, you have no power here. You can't take my life from me. I choose to lay it down. I choose to surrender my life. So rather than Jesus acknowledging unboundarylessness, Jesus was actually demonstrating another kind of boundary. He was saying, this is my choice. I am choosing to do this. And we know that's what Jesus was choosing all through. I mean, gosh, all through his ministry, he's preparing his disciples for what's going to happen, telling them that he's going to die. He knew it. He knew what he was headed to, and it was his choice to obey the Father's will. So this counsel of Jesus, go the second mile, turn the other cheek, is not an acknowledgement of unboundarylessness. It's an invitation to a certain kind of boundary. And here's the thing, this is where it becomes, you and I aren't Jesus, but this is where it becomes very practical and very relevant to people who are, struggling with this whole thing of boundaries. Martin Luther King, who was a follower of Jesus, Martin Luther King was dealing with oppression as well. And he understood that Jesus was teaching a kind of non-violent resistance to evil and to oppression. When Jesus taught, walk the second mile, turn the other cheek, Jesus was inviting people to a kind of resistance to evil, a kind of resistance to oppression. He was teaching people to choose to return good for evil, to respond in love. Martin Luther King simply said, look, hate is too great a burden to bear. And King was constantly calling people in the civil rights movement, constantly calling them to return love for the evil that they were receiving. So Martin Luther King was saying, we choose love. We choose love. And he taught people the exact words that Jesus had taught. He taught people, look, if they force you to go a mile, choose. You can choose to do this. Choose in love to go the second mile. If they hit you on the cheek, you can choose to turn the other cheek. That takes enormous courage and enormous faith and enormous hope, and it takes an enormous amount of love. But that's what King demonstrated. That's what he was telling people to choose to do. And he got that Jesus, from what Jesus taught. So for you and I who are followers of Jesus Christ, even in sayings like this, where Jesus seems to be counseling a kind of unboundarylessness, let people force you to walk the second mile. Let people force you to be beaten up. That's not what he's counseling. He's counseling in the face of oppression. That's what he's dealing with. In the face of oppression, you can choose to respond to hate with love, and it's a choice. It's a choice. So it's a demonstration of a supreme kind of boundary that I will choose to love. So for Christians, we keep coming back. For those of us who are followers, we keep coming back to love all the time. We keep just returning love. You can't get away from love as a follower of Jesus Christ. And in fact, that's the message of Jesus. How's the world going to know that you and I belong to him? Not because of the way we dress, not because we go to church on Sundays, but the world's going to recognize us by the extraordinary love that we have. That's what King was teaching, and he got that from Jesus. That's what Jesus was teaching. So I had that nibbling away in my brain when I was talking about boundaries, like, what about Jesus? And that's how I unraveled it. That's how it made sense to me. And I believe that that's the truth. Now that does not mean, just so you know, so this doesn't raise any other questions. Jesus was not talking about situations where, you get mugged in an alley or whatever. He's not saying all the time. I mean, in fact, in Romans, when Paul deals with government, Paul talks about the fact that the government wields the sword. So there is a time to resist evil with power and with might, and that's an appropriate thing. But in the context of oppression, in the context of people who are being oppressed, King understood that you don't win that battle by returning evil for evil. You don't win that battle by escalating violence. That's a battle you win by love. You make evil force itself to look at itself, which is what happened in our country uh, when, as a country, we started to see, videos of uh, police forces in the South turning fire hoses on black people who are walking across a bridge and letting loose dogs attacking children. Our country as a whole saw the ugliness of racism and what was going on. We saw evil and recognized it for what it was. And we saw it because a group of people said, we will respond in love and we will respond to violence with nonviolence. Turn the other cheek. So that was the answer to my own question. I have no other questions. Nobody's asked one. So we get a short Saturday, and I will get to a sermon. Got to figure out a sermon. Got to figure out what we're talking about tomorrow. So hope you guys have a great Saturday. Thank you for showing up. Estella, Angelica, Ann, and Kathy, hope you guys have a great day. Doesn't look real sunny out there right now, but it's warm, and I plan to spend some time outside. I should be here, Kathy. Yep, I should be here. Depends when you're here. I'll be here on and off. Got some stuff I got to do, but should be here most of the day. So anyway, love you all. Have a great day. And that was an easy question to answer, Kathy. So have a great day. And I will see you tomorrow live or on a camera. Goodbye.